Welcome everybody to this month's webinar. We are going to recap the DAC Days meeting. Welcome everybody to this month's webinar. We are going to recap the DAC Days meeting of 2023. We've had some really exciting new information. So a new ingredient was launched, and we've had a few new products also that are available, and I think available today. So this presentation was actually given by Dr. Duran, who is the owner of Performance Horse Nutrition. So we are going to use his slides. So the new technology, the new ingredient that we are going to talk about is a product called, or an ingredient called GI Pro 3. And Dr. Duran and myself, along with our partners at Kemin, developed this multi-strain of bacteria as a probiotic. And we'll talk about it more, but it's only available to PHN customers. And right now, DAC is the first client to utilize this product, the only client. So this isn't something that anybody else can say, oh yeah, we have that. Nobody else will have it. The Postulic that you all love, we listened, people wanted fly control in it, so we actually have some fly control. And then we also have brought out some deer products, an attractant and a mineral for deer. So we'll chat about those as well. So when we do these DAC educational talks, this is a little bit of a kind of recap of the things that we as Performance Horse Nutrition do for DAC. We spend time talking about the digestive system and the different regions of the digestive system. We talk about the stomach and the small intestine, and then the hindgut, which is this large section at the back. And when we talk about all the different bugs that live in the hindgut, in the horse's gut, and keeping the gut healthy, we're really talking about that hindgut. When we educate people on digestion, we need to, I always make sure that you understand the basics of how the digestive system works, and then that helps us decide exactly what you should feed the horse in question. It's also important to know where in the digestive system each of the DAC products works, and we've talked about that. The probiotics, prebiotics, they work in the hindgut. We've got something like Cool Gut that's working in the stomach. Your vitamins and minerals are going to be absorbed in the small intestine and the hindgut. We know that forage is really the most important part of the horse's diet. Horses have evolved to eat fiber, but I know this is going to sound counterintuitive or crazy. Horses actually can't digest fiber. ... If I was writing it down, I'd have the little ... after it. You're like, well, what? If horses can't digest fiber, why on earth is fiber the most important ingredient in their diet? It's because the bugs that live in the hindgut, which are pretty much another organ of the horse, they digest fiber. A horse with no gut bugs can't digest fiber, and it will not be healthy. So we need to make sure that we keep those gut bugs healthy, and that enables them to digest fiber, where they get the majority of their nutrients from. So here in this hindgut, this is where we are fermenting this plant fiber. We've talked about the microbiome over and over again. Bacteria, protozoa, fungi, yeast, trillions of different microorganisms that live in the hindgut, which we collectively call the microbiome. And together they ferment plant fibers. And from that digestion or fermentation of those plant fibers, we get things like energy, B vitamins, all are created as a byproduct of that fermentation. Well, this is kind of early equine nutrition research. The microbiome, we thought it had one function. All these bugs in the gut had one function, just to ferment fiber. There had, up until recently, there had been very little research actually done on the microbiome and the function of the microbiome. We've been too busy working on nutrient requirements and diet and exercise and kind of growth problems and reproduction. And so the microbiome really, for a long time, was known that it existed, but not really all of the things that it did. In performance horses, we certainly have, for a long time, known that a change in diet could cause diarrhea or weight loss or worst case colic. So you rapidly change the diet and you see these things. That's when we first realized that this microbiome might be playing a role in this. And we know that it actually takes a full 21 days for the bugs in the gut to adapt to new types of food. And that's kind of where we back calculate and get that 7 to 14 day window of transitioning our horses to a new food. So there's been more recently, in the last 5 years, a lot more research on the microbiome, not just in horses, but in people. It really started in people, and then we start to see it being done in other livestock animals and also in horses. And actually looking at the genetic variation in the bugs that live in the gut. We know that fat versus lean animals have a different microbiome. Healthy animals versus diseased. And disease, there's all kinds of disease, whether it be colitis or virus. Healthy versus disease, we know there's a difference in the microbiome. Laminitis versus healthy. We know that there is a clear difference in the bugs that live in the gut between horses that have laminitis versus healthy. Some of the human research, we all very familiar with COVID, a respiratory virus, but there was a clear difference. So people that got really, really sick with COVID-19, their gut microbiome was significantly different to those that got COVID but didn't get really, really sick. So in the future, we also know that there's a lot of connection between the brain and these bugs. There's a communication network between these bugs and the brain. And in the future, I think where the research is going, and it's already pointing in this direction in humans, is that you can utilize maybe a manure sample from a sick horse and design a specific prebiotic for whatever is going on based on the microbiome analysis that we take from that horse's manure. So it would be very specific treatment to individual horses, because we know all horses are very different as well. So when we are giving probiotics, we're kind of giving broad probiotics or prebiotics, not quite knowing exactly what we're treating in the horse. So we dig into the biotics. Antibiotics first. Kill or destroy the bacteria, specifically kills broad classes of bacteria. So at the very beginning, it was like antibiotics are going to kill everything. And now we have specific antibiotics that are going to kill large classes of bacteria, injectable, oral, veterinary prescription drugs, very necessary to fight certain diseases. We know that oral antibiotics often kill good classes of bacteria as well. So anytime your horse has been on antibiotics, we always recommend having them on a probiotic as well to repopulate that good bacteria that we're killing. So probiotics. We've talked about the microbiome being a community of live organisms that live in the hindgut. Well, a probiotic, by definition, must be alive, and it must confer a health benefit to the host, typically yeast or other bacteria like lactobacillus, enterococcus, streptococcus, that we actually put into the animal. Now, the little saying is must arrive alive. So it's not just alive in the tub that you buy it in, but it also has to arrive to the hindgut alive. And that is where we have a bit of a breakdown with a lot of commercially available products, is a lot of them are actually dead. So probiotic use. We know that stress from rapid diet change, trailering, exercise, environmental changes, you name it, everything stresses horses out. That can disrupt the bacteria that live this microbiome. And what we're often doing is putting probiotics into the diet to reestablish the normal gut bugs, to kind of stabilize the bugs that have maybe gotten out of balance when we have this stress, because we know that stress is going to kill off some of those good ones. Other bugs that are good but not good if they're in large quantities, they then proliferate, so now they become bad bugs. And so the probiotics putting in more bugs, healthy good bugs, can help reestablish good bugs and stabilize those populations. Prebiotics, well, this isn't food for the horse necessarily. It's non-digestible, so the horse can't actually digest it. But what it does is actually feed those gut microbes, stimulate growth. And sometimes they'll even scavenge or bind up bad bacteria. So ones we know a lot about, moss and FOS. So biomoss, which we use in a lot of our gut health supplements, that is going to bind bad bacteria like E. coli and salmonella, and flush it out of the digestive system. Here's a little diagram of how they work. So this is biomoss, and you can see that the biomoss are those green things, and the bad bacteria are these purple things, and they've got these receptors that would typically attach to the intestinal wall and then proliferate. But now the biomoss jumps into those receptors before they can attach to the intestinal wall, and then they're just flushed out of the digestive system. So the DAC products with probiotics and prebiotics, it's sometimes we're not sure, not necessarily in the DAC products, but in all pre and probiotics across the board. Other companies, it's hard to know whether what's written on the label is actually what's in the product. We're still doing more and more research, because the other thing we need to be more specialized in is, when I say the term probiotic, all it means is live bug. So that could confer a health benefit to the horse. Well, there's lots of different scenarios where a horse gets sick, and we know that in each one of those different, whether it's colic, whether it's laminitis, whether it's being fat, being thin, a different group of bacteria kind of succumb or get suppressed. So just by randomly adding any live microorganism may not be the right thing to do. Yeast is probably one of the most benign. Live yeast is going to kind of help most situations going on in the gut. But what we want to do is more targeted. Is we know the horse has E. coli or salmonella, or it's got a respiratory disease, or it's got diarrhea. And then we can actually develop strains of bugs that are going to be specific for those disorders. And that's what we've done in the GI Pro 3. And it really came about from some research that was done looking at commercially available probiotic supplements, and it named them all, and we know a lot of them. And when these supplements, so they took 50 and then they randomly selected 11 out of that, and they looked at what the label said, and then these are alive, so you can actually grow them on a plate and actually see if they are alive, none of them met the label claim. Several had absolutely no trace of the listed bacteria. So completely dead. Very interesting. So how do we overcome that? So we need to do better. As an industry, we need to do better, and we can just, Dr. Duran and myself, we can only start with our clients, but we remember that probiotics are live microorganisms. And there are so many different things that can affect the numbers. Manufacturing, so when you are putting these microorganisms through a pellet mill because you're putting it in a feed, or you're heat treating it, then transporting it from point A to point B, storage conditions, is it sitting in a really hot tack room? Is it sitting in the back of a store before it gets sold? And so we wanted to address all of those issues, and so we've developed GI Pro 3. We partnered with Chemin Industries, and Chemin is where we source the Chemtrace Chromium, which is in the metabolic and in the racing formula. It's where we get the Butapearl ZEQ, which is in the Rescue Aid paste and powder. And we wanted a probiotic that has very specific health benefits to the horse based on certain disorders that are very prevalent. So it's a proprietary blend of 3 bacillus strains. And again, only PHN and PHN clients have access to this GI Pro 3. Dr. Duran and I developed it with Chemin. One of the first things that we need to do is make sure that will it survive manufacturing? Can you put it through a pellet mill? Whether that is because you're putting it into a feed, or we want a micro pellet, one of the DAC supplements, we need to make sure that it will withstand high temperatures. And we've tested it at 90 degrees Celsius, which is 195 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the temperature of going through a pellet mill, and it 100% survives. The other thing is when you are feeding a probiotic to a cow, literally all that has to happen is it opens its mouth and it falls down the throat and into the stomach where we have all the fermentation. All the fermentation in a cow occurs in the beginning of their digestive system. Unfortunately, in a horse, we've got to get through the acidity in the stomach and then through the enzymes in the small intestine. And I believe that a lot of probiotic supplements, even if they are alive in the container you're buying, they're then being killed by the acidity in the stomach. So will it survive the conditions in the stomach? It needs to be stable at a pH of 3, which is really, we're getting down there strong stomach acid. For 30 and 60 minutes, and that's what we had. We had stability at a pH of 3 for 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So it will arrive alive to the hindgut. It actually is kind of that outer wall so the probiotic is encapsulated, and the acid in the stomach actually breaks that outer wall down so that it then can pass through to the small intestine and the hindgut and be safe and healthy. Shelf life. It has years of shelf life in pastes, powders, feeds, pellets, textured. This is a really neat little display from Miss Mary Ray at Low Places Ranch. I think she's on tonight. So once it gets to the hindgut, right, it can survive manufacturing, it can survive the stomach acid, it's actually going to get to the hindgut. What's so amazing about this stuff once it actually gets to the hindgut? Because whoop-de-doo, it gets there, but now what's it going to do, right? It's going to inhibit bacteria that causes certain diseases. These are diseases that we find prevalent in equine populations. So Clostridia, which is going to cause a lot of diarrhea, Rhodococcus, which is respiratory disorder, which is very, very prevalent in foals, and Streptococcus, which is strangles, and also Salmonella, another one that's causing chronic diarrhea. So it will inhibit these bacteria causing these diseases. So these are the bacteria, as mentioned, that cause strangles, loose manure, diarrhea, lung abscesses. It's a true the GI Pro 3, you can consider this is by definition a true probiotic. It's arriving alive to the hindgut with proven equine pathogen inhibition. So it's going to kill these bugs, right? This is huge. There's not another product out there that has gone through the same testing as far as stability and shelf life and ability to arrive alive to the hindgut. So this is really, really great information. So which products? So the Rescue Aid and the DDA have, and that's the Rescue Aid powder and the paste. You know, it's 1 tube of paste or 3 ounces of powder for the Rescue Aid. And the DDA at 3 ounces is going to give you a full dose of a full therapeutic dose of the GI Pro 3. There are other products in the new catalog. If you've got a new catalog, you can see any product that is going to have it in there, like the Colt Grower, the Yucker, anything that had microbes in it before has the GI Pro 3 in it, but this is just a supportive level, okay? If you have horses that have these issues with diarrhea or respiratory issues, then you definitely want to have them on the Rescue Aid paste, powder, or digestive aid. Only DAC supplements have the GI Pro 3 so far. So I won't take questions on this now. At DAC days, these were questions. Pasture lick. How can we improve the pasture lick? A lot of people were asking about fly control during the summer months, and we had been slow dragging our feet a little because we didn't necessarily want to add chemicals into the pasture lick, but Alltech has a natural fly control, and we have added it into the pasture lick. And I think I saw a note today that it's in the pasture lick currently. So how can we, we're safely feeding this to broodmares, foals, anything that eats it. The thing is, with any kind of fly control, every animal on the property, every horse on the property has to be getting some fly control, right? So typically I would say that the lick tub is just for horses that aren't getting fed. But if you want the oral fly control, then maybe you're putting this out into more of your turnout areas so that all the horses can have access to it. It's a product called Nature Fly. It's diatomaceous earth, yucca shitagira extract, molasses for some flavor, and some more dried Bacillus subtilis fermentation product. So the diatomaceous earth, that's what it actually looks like under a microscope. And those edges are razor sharp. It's fossilized algae dust. And it's very safe to feed. But what happens is it's not actually absorbed in the body, but in the manure, it coats the manure. And when those fly larvae come to the surface to try and hatch, it actually is very abrasive and breaks them down and stops that fly life cycle. Yucca shitagira is an ammonia scavenger, so that strong smell in the urine and manure. So if we can reduce the odor, that's also less fly attraction to the area. Obviously, we use molasses for some palatability, and then it is currently in the lick tubs. Now, these bullet points here, this is, imagine I'm Dr. Duran. I'll start talking with a much deeper voice. Certainly, I do not do anything with deer, so this hasn't been a priority project for me for a number of years. But earlier this year, I was riding with Andy Ellsworth, and every man and his dog was showing me pictures of their deer that they had either taken on a trail cam or they had hunted. And I was like, well, maybe a deer product, the deer attractant and the deer mineral, because obviously antler quality, size, strength is really important. So I mentioned it to Dr. Duran, and then he was over the moon because it was something that he'd wanted to do for a long time. These are pictures of him hunting things. So the big buck, Dak Big Buck, I know, such an original name, is the mineral block. Free choice, salt and trace minerals, apple flavor to attract, so that they'll want to eat it anyway. The two main things that are really set the Dak deer mineral apart from other animals, and look, I am no deer nutritionist, but I do know that antler strength and quality, there's been a lot of research. The marine derived calcium that we put in the cool gut and the pre-buff and the colt grower to help with bone density. There's been a lot of research looking at marine derived calcium and its ability to have stronger antlers. And then organic chromium, the chemtrace chromium. Growing big antlers is a luxury. Staying alive, breeding with other does, that is, that's what they have to do every day. Growing giant antlers is a luxury. So if you can get more energy, and they can unlock more nutrients and energy, then they're going to put more energy into, they're going to prioritize the things they have to do to stay alive, and then there's going to be excess left over, and they can put more energy into growing larger antlers. So that's two huge selling features to the Dak product over a lot of other deer mineral blocks that are sold. Is the marine derived calcium and the organic chromium are going to increase antler strength and quality. Dak buck magnet is an attractant, and we've got protein for antler and body growth. Again, the apple flavor to attract and hold the deer, the same minerals and vitamins. Marine derived calcium, organic chromium. If horses or cows ate some of these, got access to these mineral blocks, it would be fine. But they're certainly, the apple flavor might cause a horse to annihilate a whole deer block. So I would try to make sure that deer and cows and horses didn't have access to these blocks, just because they'll waste them. But again, I don't hunt. So what I do know is that you have to make sure, I know in some states it's not legal to actually put out blocks for attracting animals. So always check with your local wildlife authorities before putting them out. So with that, I'll take any questions on anything that we've talked about this evening.